Yeah, let's go. Thank you all. Thank you for the warm applause and welcome back to the What Are You Made Of show here in that one studio with your boy C-Roc. It's always great to have all of you here watching, listening, however you're consuming this content, but also the audience that's applauding. Every time they're so lively, full of passion and energy, and I just love it. It fires me up. So thank you all for being here. Let's get this show started today. This show about, what are you made of has been going on since 2019. And it just feels like it's happened overnight, and it went by so fast. And I just want to make sure that I always acknowledge my guests and the audience and supporters of this show. I just want to acknowledge you and express gratitude because I don't want to take it for granted. It's been a wild ride. Podcasting for me has changed my life, having a show, going on shows. And now I'm actually in the business with that one agency of helping people get on shows. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity, but I couldn't have done it without all of you, including my guest today, Adrienne Garland, who's in the building. She is a woman's leadership and entrepreneurship expert, host of the Sugar Coated podcast, creator of She Leads Podcast Network, and an adjunct professor at NYU and Rice University. Welcome to the show, Adrienne.
Hey, Mike. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm so happy too. And we figured out, first I couldn't hear you and I was trying to lip read and we figured out the glitch. And it's just so good because I was, I'm always concerned, what if her mic doesn't work? That's what went through my mind. And I'm like, I'm going to have to figure something out. I'm going to have to drive wherever she is and bring a mic to her.
Come to New York.
Or do DoorDash for her or something. Anyway, welcome to the show. We start the show the same way every time, Adrienne. That keeps me on track. And that's with the question, what are you made of?
I love it. So I have to be a little funny. So I'm made of sugar and spice and grit. That's what I'm made of.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, going after it. What's grit mean to you?
It means going after it, right? It's like having your goal and objective and doing what's necessary to achieve that, but also knowing that at a certain point, it's okay to change what your goals and objectives are. You don't need to just stick to one thing because we're human beings and we are always evolving and changing. And if we don't change our goals and objectives to accommodate how we are changing, then, that's silly. So, I think if you're passionate about something and you really want to achieve a certain thing, I don't think that there's anything that you can't do. Your mind is so very, very powerful.
Yeah, I agree, man. And when you're just saying that, you're giving basically permission for people to change their mind, basically.
Yeah. I think sometimes in society, we are we're conditioned to, pick something and stick with it. And there's nothing wrong with that, except for the fact that when we pick things sometimes, we don't have all the information. We're not fully informed. Like I'm just thinking about, high school kids that are picking where they're going to college and what their careers are going to be. It's absolutely ridiculous that we expect an 18-year-old to know what they want to do for the rest of their lives. That's ridiculous.
So how do you, I know I've been talking about this for a while now, what you're talking about is just phenomenal, but how do we explain to people that, that involves quitting
Yeah,
and that quitting isn't a bad thing?
it's so funny. So I teach at NYU in the Tisch Center for Hospitality, and I teach in the event management program, and I teach entrepreneurship. So much of what we talk about is about mindset, right? And how powerful your mind is. And last night, we had a discussion with undergraduate students about what it means to quote unquote, fail or to to know when to we said cut our losses. And then we had a whole discussion around what does cut our losses even mean, right? So when do we determine that it's time to, keep going and put your nose to the grindstone? And when is it time to recognize that it's time for change? And it was such a rich discussion that I was so happy to have with these people who were young that I have to admit, I didn't think that they were going to have such deep thought about it. And we had this incredible conversation. So it gives me hope that the youth really, they are thinking about these things.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And let me ask you this: since you're into the university space, college space, post high school space, and there's a lot of talk about, do people really need college, and
Mm,
is it a waste of time, waste of money?
yeah.
Only people that are doctors and they're going to be lawyers or engineers really need to go to college. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Being in that environment, and you as an expert in entrepreneurship and leadership, going in there and working with these kids, it's such an important concept that you need to teach them.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on all that talk?
Oh my gosh, I think I could talk myself into both areas. Is college necessary for success? No, right? We have so many examples of people that, they didn't go down the college route and they're incredibly successful, incredibly happy. There's, also people that they do go down the path and they're incredibly successful and they're incredibly happy. So, for anything in life, we can't make sweeping statements about anything because every single human being is different, and how we observe the world and how we move through the world is different. So, I do think that there is great benefit to going to college, for a variety of reasons. I think it really grows you up, right? Especially if you go away and you're on your own, and you have to make choices and you have to live with the consequences of some of those choices. So I think that it's a good thing from a social perspective. Um, I don't know that the education system is set up to help us in our lives. There's so many other things about mindset, about how we take care of ourselves that's never taught in school, and it really should be. And we're also not taught how to think, right? If we were just taught how to think and how to leverage all of the tools that we have around us, I think that college would be very worth it. College is also amazing, especially when you have the ability to go to an amazing school like Rice University or like NYU, where I both teach. There are highly intelligent, incredibly creative, very innovative staff and students, that it's a mixing pot that really is so inspiring. So I think there's great benefit. At the same time, I don't think it's for everybody.
Yeah, and then well, also with the cost of it,
It's
100,000,
ridiculous.
200,000, like, I think there's something that needs to be done about that. Now, there's a lot of money going into campuses. I was just down at Ole Miss
Mm,
last weekend for the LSU Ole Miss football game, and we
yeah.
always go on that campus, and they just have brand new facility, and it's so beautiful what they do, and I love that aesthetics matter,
Yeah,
because I really think aesthetics, affect your moods. They
they
affect your
do.
productivity. So
Yeah.
I love that they're investing the money in that kind of stuff. But the cost, it's just like,
It's astronomical.
it just seems like there's got to be a way. I know we're just going down the rabbit hole here,
I
but
don't know.
there's a
That's good.
cost. And then, hey, why don't we create a plan for these kids to pay that back as fast as possible? And we teach them how to do that.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
totally. That's one of the things that needs to be taught, starting in middle school, is how do you set yourself up for financial success in the future? Because imagine these kids actually did start investing and they were able to, take advantage of the compounding effect of interest from when they were 12, right? Maybe the burden of college wouldn't be so bad. Maybe the problem is not how much college costs, but how we as a society think about creating wealth.
yeah, yeah. I mean, because investing, paying for tuition is an investment into
Yes.
your future. It is an investment. So it's not bad to invest in yourself. But how do I pay for that?
Yeah.
And that's the part that, and of course they have their parents and they have the college plans for the parents and all this other stuff. But, I don't know.
We're just
But
not
anyway,
taught. We are not taught from when we're young how to build wealth, period. We're not.
right,
And,
right.
you know, I definitely come from a place of privilege. So, when I was 12, I had a bank account and I was making money. Not everybody has that ability to even say, oh, I've got some money here. Some people are just trying to survive. But if we are taught, like, this is how you make money work for you, if we're educated about that and we understand that, I think the country, the world would be in a much better place.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So where's your story start? Let's hear about. You said you came from a privileged background, but like, what was it like as a kid growing up, Adrian? And where's your story? Tell us your story.
Oh my gosh. Do you really have the time? So let's see. I grew up in a very small town in, they call it upstate New York. It's Westchester County. Anything north of New York City, everybody
Mm,
considers upstate. But so I grew up upstate. And I went to, public school. My parents were both teachers. Actually, when I say privileged, in comparison to other people, I also wasn't privileged in some ways. I lost my dad when I was real young. So that was something that has affected me throughout my whole entire life. And I think they say sometimes that, when you have something like that happen at a young age, that it formulates, who you are. And I think that it did that for me because it gave me this like crazy drive to succeed. And who knows if it was because of that or just because of who I am. But anyway, I always did pretty well in school. I went to college at a state school, SUNY Albany. And I met my husband there, and I'm still married to him to this day,
congrats.
which is good. John, and he's an entrepreneur himself. He has his own business. And then I worked for a while in New York City. I worked in the finance industry and investment banking. And then I went back to school to get my MBA from NYU Stern. All of this is done with grit, right? This is not having anybody hand me anything at all. This is all my doing. And I worked when I actually switched my major when I was going to Stern to marketing, and so I got into media entertainment and technology when I graduated from Stern. And I worked at a cable company for a long time, and then I ended up working at PricewaterhouseCoopers, which I guess I'll publicly say was, the best job on paper and the worst job of my entire life. It literally broke my
Oh man.
spirit. Those people at PwC. And but what it did is it pushed me out on my own. So I started my own business in 2010, and it was really, marketing consulting. I did what I knew, or I thought I knew best. And my company has like grown and evolved since then. I put on conferences for women entrepreneurs and leaders now, and also help women entrepreneurs and leaders gain visibility through podcast network, and I help women strategically with like PR and marketing and things like that. And over the past, I guess it's 3 years now, I started teaching, which is really the of my life. I love it so very much. And I am lucky as hell because I get to travel with students that are going for their MBA in the online program at Rice University in the Jones School of Business. Shout out Rice Owls. And I get to travel to all different countries and help students guide them through consulting projects that they have to do in their MBA program. So 2 weeks ago, I was in Bogota, Colombia.
Wow.
Yeah, and then this year I was in Sao Paulo. I've been to Lima, Peru, Berlin, Germany, and Santiago, Chile. Yeah, great stuff.
Santiago, Chile.
Yeah.
You remember that movie, Something About Mary? He talked
Yes.
about
Yes.
that.
Santiago.
It was he said something about a
A
building that he had no idea what the
building.
hell he was talking about. So that was funny.
Yeah,
Anyway,
hysterical.
uh, no, I love it. And what's the difference between women and men when it comes to leadership and entrepreneurship? And why is that? I mean, obviously you're a woman, but like, why did you choose that niche? And what do you see the differences? Because you obviously work with men too.
Yeah. And I love men, like make no mistake about it. I actually, it's funny because the name of my company is She Leads Media, and it's my goal to help women to gain visibility so that they are. But I am not of the mindset that women are better than men or men are better than women. It's really about humanity. And so sometimes I think, she leads media. It's I really don't want only women to be leading. I want the best human to be leading. So I think that again, it's like a society thing, right? Like men in general, everything is sweeping statements. Men have more of a leadership style that is a little bit more militaristic, command and control. And I think women are a little bit more community oriented. So it's more of, leadership in the ranks, if you will, using all the military terms. And you know, there's men that operate like that, there's women that operate like that, but I think that society holds up the, follow me into war as what leader is. And it's just weird. Like last night I did this, it wasn't an experiment, but I just posed a question like, okay, we were talking about one of the things that I'd like to do. I'd like to film this documentary, and I was telling it. And I said, okay, like call out the first leader that comes to mind. So Elon Musk. All right, who else? Steve Jobs. Okay, who else? Blah, blah, blah. I said, what does, and one person said Barack Obama. I said, what does every single person that you've just mentioned, what is a common characteristic? And they were all looking at, I don't know. I'm like, they're all white men. They're all white men. So all of us, and my class is made up of men and women, all of us are conditioned to think that, the white male archetype is leader. And we need to change that because there are incredible people that are doing amazing things and leading, and we just don't kind of recognize that as leadership.
Yeah, yeah. There's a cast been made,
Yes. Yes.
and you got to break the cast. You got to break the mold,
Yeah.
and what that's going to take is intention behind it. Like
Yeah.
there's got to be intentional action that goes towards it. So no, I agree. I love it. And when it comes to leadership, where like who is your, I don't want to say idol, but who was your mentor, or even if it was like from afar, books that you read, like favorite influencers when it comes to leadership? Who stands out in your mind? And it's probably a white male. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Elon Musk.
No, no, but
Steve
like
Jobs.
that you learn. No, but you learn not examples of leadership, but that you learn leadership from. Like I could say John Maxwell's, for example.
Yeah.
Everybody knows John Maxwell, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody like that speaks on leadership a lot. Did you learn leadership from anybody like that?
I don't know if there's necessarily, one person, and all of those people that I mentioned, I think that there's incredible characteristics that they all do have. So, yes, observing those things, seeing how people hold themselves, how they, speak, what they speak about. There's a lot of different women that I think are wonder human beings. So everybody's flawed, right? So there's not. I never kind of hold one person up as they're a guru. People that march to their own beat. I am definitely influenced by, I guess, like pop culture and music and entertainment. So, and I admire people like Hillary Clinton or Michelle Obama, Oprah. But those are people that I think a lot of people, say. Somebody that I think is incredibly amazing is the artist Pink. And it is because, number one, she is so incredibly talented. She is her own person and always has been. And I admire that greatly. Somebody else that would never consider herself a leader, but I take a lot of, I guess, who I am from how she has behaved through her life is my mother, right? My mom, anybody that is listening and that knows her, my mom is like hysterical, and she also doesn't take any bullshit from anybody.
I
And
love it. I
yeah,
love it.
growing up, like I was like, God, my mom's mean. But she's not mean. She's like incredibly loving, but she's just like, she doesn't take bullshit from anyone. And so
Hmm.
those, I think it's more of a compilation of characteristics of different people that I admire. And there are plenty of men that I admire. I mean, Steve Jobs is definitely one of them.
Hmm. Yeah, and your mom like going through, losing her husband, and how old were you when that happened?
7.
7. Yeah, you know, um, I've interviewed a lot of people that have lost their fathers at a younger age, and they all seem like they're go getters. A lot of them maybe even went through a little phase of drugs and alcohol or some kind of
I'm still going through that phase. No, just kidding.
adjustment. But I mean adjustment wherever they have this, but they're all like hyperactive go getters. They want to
Yeah.
impact. They want to do something to prove something, and
Ugh.
and it's not just death. It's like for me, my father, when I was about 11 or 10, I have a story that he chose his basically chose his new wife and new family over a relationship with me. But that's just a choice he made. And I'm like that. I'm like, I'll show you. And I wrote a book about this.
Mm,
But then also that gets toxic at some
it
point. At some
does.
point you got to figure out, okay, that's great. That got me to a certain level, but now I need to create big goals and dreams that
Yeah.
pull me forward rather than push me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a faster, cleaner, efficient fuel. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, has there been a transformation, a transition point where you were using past experiences as fuel, but then now have something pulling you forward?
Yeah. I mean, I think that in a lot of ways, that's exactly where I am right now. And I think it's because both of my kids are at college, right? So they're both for the first time, like not here that I don't have to care for them.
Yeah.
I think, our egos try to right the wrongs, and that it's such a driver, right? And I do think that a driver for me was this idea of trying to be in control of everything in my life, right? How much money I made, what I did, where I lived, all of it. And I got everything I wanted. Like, yeah, there were, bumps along the way and challenges, but for the most part, I don't give up. And I think that that's why I said in the beginning, like, sugar and spice and grit, because that has driven me. I think it's driven me to the point of I'm like, I don't know, can I curse?
Yeah. I don't know. Can you?
Oh my God. It's like I am fucking exhausted. I have piled so much shit onto my plate that for what reason? It's just exhausting me instead of giving me the fuel that I need. So unfortunately, I have a mindset where I'm like, let me just clear the decks and like burn it all down and start over. But I know that's dumb. So I think I'm a little bit more mature because maybe if I felt like this when I was, 30, I probably would have burned it all down and then started over. But yeah, I love how you said like it's the fuel that propels you, but it's not clean fuel. I need to clean up my fuel to get through like what's next and be very
Yeah.
intentional about it instead of like driven by this force that it doesn't, not that it doesn't matter anymore.
Hmm. It's not fulfilling.
No.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is liabilities and assets, right? So some things start as an asset and they become a liability.
Yeah.
And then some things are liabilities and they become an asset. I learned this from so many mentors that I've had talking about this. So assessment a lot of times leads to elevation because you can take assessment of, okay, what's my liabilities and assets right now?
Yeah.
My thoughts, words, actions, behaviors, the environment that I keep people in my life.
Yeah.
What's an asset? What's a liability right now?
Yeah.
And cleaning that up, talking about you don't get rid of everything, but what are the liabilities? Get rid of the liabilities.
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah. And the other thing about entrepreneurship, and I'd love to, to see if you talk to the kids about this, is getting on a project,
Hmm.
and then you get this dopamine hit from coming up with a name, a brand, a logo, a URL, a website. But then when it's time to actually market it and go to work, there's no dopamine in work.
No.
There's dopamine in coming up. Everybody's excited about, see if this GoDaddy. Let me go to GoDaddy. Oh, this
Yeah.
is gonna be awesome, and ideating, and it gets so exciting. But then when they go to work, they pull off, and then they go to another idea and look for another domain because they're looking for that dopamine hit
Yeah.
instead of pushing all the way through.
Yep.
Entrepreneurs, this happens all the time. They're all over the place and they have 5 things, 6 things going on. I've been there. So, do you talk to the kids about that at all?
Yeah.
And what do you do for that for yourself?
Yeah. So it's so funny. Again, last night, I feel like you should have been in my class last night. We talk about ideation and all of that, and then we get into sort of like, okay, you've got the idea, let's plan now. Let's make a plan, but let's not get caught up in the planning because we always want to have momentum. And so when we start talking about, we use these tools, and actually there's an incredible tool. I feel like it's like a useful tool for life. It's called the business model canvas, and it just helps you think through every single little aspect of a business so that you're not missing anything. And then we talk about, how important it is that you've got this idea, you've planned it out. You really need to go talk to the people that purchase your product or service. And so I asked them last night, like, okay, let's come up with some experiments that you could do, low cost, low risk, where you could test out your idea before, fully going forward with it. And I got tons of blank stares, even though they should have done the reading. Ton of blank stares. And they're like, what do you mean? And they had so much trouble coming up with an experiment to conduct, to get feedback. And they were like, what about this? I don't know. And I said, you see how hard that is? Just even, we're talking about an experiment. We're not even launching the company yet. If you can't even do this, what do you think it's going to be like to actually try and market to people and get them to buy something from you? And they were like, oh my gosh, like you're right. And it's almost like it's like that hit of reality. And you could see their like, shoulders slump, like, oh my God, I have to do this. Yes, you need to
Hmm.
do this.
Yep, it's an emotional curve they go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we wind down here, I want to know more about the Sugar Coated podcast. Why is it called Sugar Coated, and what's it all about? And then
Yeah.
also, I want to ask you more about the network.
Yeah. So Sugar Coated is a podcast where I interview women entrepreneurs and leaders about everything that's not sugar coated. So no bullshit, no Instagrammy, this is my best life ever. It's about super practical advice and stories, just like you're doing with me, like asking those questions that not everybody asks so that we can hear the real stuff, so that we
Yeah.
can get, further faster. And then the podcast network is a place. It is a podcast network for women by women. So I have a variety of different podcast hosts that are part of the She Leads podcast network. And it's just this idea of all of us coming together to uplift women's voices, thoughts, and opinions. And I also, the reason I started all of this is because I produce a conference every year. It's called She Leads Live. It's actually happening on December 1st in New York City. And that is sort of the same thought where I bring experts to the stage to offer super practical, actionable advice to audience members who are women entrepreneurs and women leaders.
Awesome. I love it. Well, there's definitely room for us to collaborate. There's synergy here. I can see it already. I have ideas going through my head. And, that's a big thing for me too, is collaboration. I've had the most success when I've collaborated and not try to do everything on my own,
Agreed.
but also offer help to people. And then in turn, things just elevate. I've become known as an elevator because when people are in my environment, that they can't help it because I make sure that happens or they
Yeah.
leave, one or the other.
Right.
They either elevate or leave. So no, I'm looking forward to connecting with you further and talking to you more about this. And I love your story. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, just let me know. And thank you for being here, Adrian.
Thank you so much, Mike. This was so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you all for watching or listening. And I really appreciate all of you so much again. I'll thank you again. Keep coming back. And until next time, it's your boy C-Roc signing off here from the That One studio on the What Are You Made Of show. Be that one.